What's going on, everybody? Dr. Andrew Fix back for another episode here on The Code. Thank you so much for tuning in to listen to this episode, however you are listening to it, whether you're at home, you're at work, you're in the car, whatever that might be. Really appreciate your time being here. And I'm really excited for this interview that we have lined up for you guys today. Dr. Beata Lerman is joining me, and she is a geneticist and immunologist by training. And currently, she's operating as the chief scientific officer for a microgreens company called Revogreen. So, Dr. Beata, thanks so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Andrew. It's a true honor.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. And I want to do a quick public thank you to you for all of you guys that are tuning in to listen to this. This is actually the second time we've attempted to record this podcast. We had some technical difficulties the first time, and so I just really appreciate your time jumping on here again so that we could get this out to all the listeners. But Beata, will you do me a favor and just sort of give us a little bit better of like a background and an introduction to you? Where are you from? How did you get into what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a dual PhD. I'm classically trained immuno-oncologist, means I'm an immunologist who studied cancer, and a biochemist with the specialization in genetic engineering. Don't worry, I'm not engineering our microgreens. They come as natural as it can be. But actually, I started on the research scientist path very early in my life. I was born in Russia, and in Russia, if you show aptitude for something, they have resources to really start educating you early. So I've been in the lab since I was 12 years old, and I've been working in the lab actually getting money for it since I was 14. And wow, it was a very interesting road. So I started in genetics, studying how heavy metals cause mutations in cells. And then as a 16-year-old, I moved to United States. And once I learned English, I started working in Texas Medical Center and UT Health Science Center, Department of Microbiology and Molecular Genetics. And then I've moved to Baylor College of Medicine into immunology. Then I went to Tel Aviv University to get my first graduate degree. And then I came back and I started to study cancer. And as a cancer researcher, I actually invented a new class of immunotherapy, a brand new molecule. And I hold 2 patents on them with MD Anderson Cancer Center. And as far as I know, it's being used successfully to treat patients right now.
That's awesome. And, it's pretty obvious based on the background and whatnot that you shared that you're an extremely bright person. And now you're operating in this role as the chief scientific officer for Revogreen. And I got introduced to Josh from Revogreen through a mutual friend here that lives in the Denver, Colorado area. And she connected me with him. We had a conversation. And then when I brought up the idea of doing this podcast, he immediately suggested that you be the one to do it. So tell us about how you got connected with Josh and Brandon at Revogreen and how you came to take on this role as the chief scientific officer.
So the Revogreen's goal as a company is to improve health. And my personal goal as a biomedical researcher and scientist and a consultant was also to improve health. That's why I was developing the immunotherapies, trying to help people with cancer. Unfortunately, working the academic research and even pharmaceutical side of biomedical field, I realized that no matter the research, no matter how many people trying on it, the population keeps getting sicker and sicker. Mm-hmm. And that kind of breaks my heart, especially with the chronic non-infectious diseases like diabetes and heart disease and cancers. And so I realized at some point that something has to change, and we need to have a better approach to health. And so I started my own company that's called Sinless Treats. I make elite artisan sugar-free chocolate. And with my own company, I was at the biotech incubator networking coffee event. And I met Josh, and we started talking. So I told him that I make this awesome sugar-free chocolate. And he said, is there a way to put microgreens into the chocolate? And I said, sure. You just have to freeze dry them and turn them into powder. And Josh took it to heart, and so he took that thought to Brandon, and later, maybe a week later, introduced me to Brandon, and I started telling them how we can modify this product. And back then, they were the raw microgreen producers. They were selling fresh microgreens at farmers market, and we kind of pivoted the company based on the fact that we wanted to extend the shelf life. We wanted to get this really awesome product to as many hands as possible. And we actually did do microgreen infused chocolates. We first introduced it at the Future of Food conference at South by Southwest in 2022. And it took like a wildfire. People were crazy with the idea that they're eating a bar of a really high-end chocolate, but in reality, they were having a salad.
Yeah, and that would be awesome, because of course I don't know too many people. I mean, I guess there's a few, but I don't know too many people that don't enjoy a nice piece of chocolate. And if you're going to get some added health benefits with that, what's not to like? I believe you told me the last time that we had this conversation that Revogreen is quite possibly the only, it might be that you guys might have the only company that does this, but that actually uses like the microgreen portion of the plants, like from the child version of the plant, as opposed to more of an more mature plant. Is that true? What is the process that you guys use at Revogreen to create your green supplement?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Thank you for that. Yes, we are currently, as far as I know, the only company that makes the dietary supplements based on microgreens. And what we are as a company, we're fully vertically integrated, means that from the seed to the packaged product, the entire flow through of that development is in our hands. We have this incredible vertical farm that was designed and developed by our CEO, Brandon. He is a mechanical engineer, and he's a genius in this way. It's almost entirely robotic. It has lots of sensors that is calculating the health and the different stages of this plant development. We also work with the soil engineers, because the soil is one of the most important things when we talk about plants. Our vegetables in the grocery stores very often depleted of nutrients because of the monocropping, and there is no rotation. The soil is not repleting. So we're working with Texas A&M professors, soil scientists, who got us on this soil called regenerated soil. And this means that it's even several notches above the organic soil. This is the soil that contains all of this different natural organic matter, not just compost, but also the fungi and all of this different thing that's enriching. And of course, all of those incredible nutrients get bound up and into the seed when it's getting the seedling up. And so the microgreens is actually a third stage of the plant development. So you have the seed, the sprout, and then it's a microgreen. So it has the first two leaves. But normally those microgreens are up to 40 times more nutrient dense than adult version of the plant. So it has to have all of those goodness to give rise to the huge big kale or broccoli or radish, whatnot. So it accumulates all of that before it just explodes with either the nutraceuticals or with the adult version of the plant.
Yeah. So, it sounds like you're basically just saying in that form, it packs a much more potent punch when you utilize that. Now, just to make sure that we are all on the same page, myself and anyone else that's listening to this, what exactly is, you mentioned nutraceuticals. What exactly is a nutraceutical? Because I see that word thrown around.
Yeah, the nutraceutical, it's an excellent question. It is a plant-based compound, which is not a vitamin, mineral, or a protein, carbohydrate, or fat. It's not a macronutrient, it's not a micronutrient. It's everything else. It's the, it's a phytomolecules that have additional nutritional benefits aside from macro and micro. So it's not the macronutrients and it's not the vitamin. Got
it. Fills in the gaps there, basically.
Yeah.
Now, when was it that you guys started Revogreen, and when was that you ended up sort of joining Josh and Brandon in this journey?
So I joined them fairly early. So I met Josh in January 2022. So incredible. It's been a year. Last time we had this conversation, it was a little under a year. Now it's a whole full year.
Yeah.
It's been a very rewarding and interesting road. We've gone through the process of acquiring the medical grade equipment, freeze dryers, filmmaking machines, counters, which is fully compliant with the FDA standards and National Drug Administration standards. We've had it all inspected. We've built a factory in Houston, Texas that is producing the microgreen supplements that host all of those reagents. So we had an FDA approval on the facility. And I actually, funny enough, last time it hasn't happened yet, but yesterday the FDA came in to reinspect. They do the surprise inspection, and we've passed with just the flying colors. And I've been told many times, if everybody did their operations the way we do it, that those inspectors would be very, very happy people.
You make their job easy when you're just doing things the way that you should be, and not trying to skate by. So, well, that's awesome to hear. And I think this is funny because the last time we had this conversation, we started to talk about the different blends and the different line of supplements that you guys have. So I have a list here right in front of me that at Revogreen, you guys actually offer 9 different lines of the supplements, and I'll list them off, but then I would love for you to give kind of just like an overview of the different products that you guys offer. So the 9 different versions that I have written here is you have an immunity blend, sleep, a muscle and joint, a power, allergy, focus, gut, a multivitamin, and one called glow. And how did you guys sort of decide on, like, when you were making your different versions and different compounds, like to come to the conclusion to have these 9 different categories?
So we were observing both evidence-based scientific information, so clinical trials, which microgreens and a microgreen or adult plant powder showed a very potent result in actual diseases in formal FDA-approved clinical trials. And we also were monitoring what our customers were telling us, the improvements in health results that they've seen in their body. And we were kind of cross-referencing that with what was already published in the scientific literature. So as a chief scientific officer, my role is to make sure that everything we do is science-based, that there is clear and strong evidence, and that those evidence are untainted, like it's unbiased in any way. So every day I go through the new trials, I read through number of articles which can sum up pretty quickly to hundreds of articles. And we try to apply it to the blends. For example, my favorite blend is Immunity.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's the one that you feel the least, but does the most. So those are broccoli microgreens. And broccoli microgreens are among the most well-researched microgreens in science. There is over 97 clinical trials they've been used in. And broccoli microgreens have this compound called sulforaphane, which has been shown in research to be a very potent anti-inflammatory agent. It's a very strong antioxidant. It shows some promising results in cancer treatments. It shows promising results as a anti-neural inflammation. So it was even successfully tried in autism clinical trial. And you can all find it on clinicaltrial.gov. It's a public information. You would just put broccoli green extract and a condition, and it will give you the number of trials. But for example, that molecule sulforaphane, it cannot be activated in our body, so it's not readily bioavailable without an enzyme that occurs in spicy vegetables like radishes or mustard. And that enzyme is called myrosinase. And myrosinase essentially cuts sulforaphane in a way that it becomes bioavailable, that we can achieve the maximal benefit for our health.
Yep.
And so the very interesting part of it is we very often get asked, so you guys freeze dry your microgreens and then you turn it into powder. Doesn't it kind of destroy all of those plant goodness? Yeah. And the answer, surprisingly, is no, because when we consume plants, we can absorb a very small amount of nutrients because our body cannot break down cellulose. It basically is a fiber. It does a lot of good, but it basically enters and exits unchanged. Mm-hmm. When you form crystals inside of the plant cells that is sharp and it's shredding that cells apart, actually what it does, it makes it a lot more available to us. And we can retain a lot more of those phytochemicals and those fibers and things like that. And so there is a very prominent researcher in this world, in the world of microgreens. Her name is Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and she is brilliant. I would love to have a conversation with her one day. So I think we'll be reaching out to her shortly. But she was actually the one who pioneered that research and actually looked at the bioavailability of different microgreens with different ways of processing. Mm-hmm. And what we aim for is we want to minimally process something to get the maximum amount of nature, but which would bring the maximum amount of benefit as well.
Yeah, and I love that you kind of went down that bioavailability kind of discussion because, I think that's something that's particularly important, no matter what you're talking about, taking into your body and eating or drinking is, you're not exactly, that old saying, you are what you eat. Well, you are what you're actually able to absorb, right? Like exactly. if you can't use it and your body can't utilize it, then that's just going to pass through largely unchanged. So I've heard that similar thing, like you said, with the freeze drying, and that kind of breaks the molecule up a little bit and makes it more bioavailable. You hear the same thing about some different foods about a slight cooking process. Mm-hmm. Creates a very similar aspect. Now, before we start maybe going down the path of the conversation of, what separates Revogreen from some of the other microgreen or greens supplements out there. I remember one of the conversations we had last time on this recording was, and you started this conversation by going into the discussion on like regenerative agriculture and the soil and everything. But, why do we as humans, why do we even need a supplement like this in the first place? And we sort of started to talk about, our dietary system and our food system here in the United States and how we are lacking a lot of the vitamins and nutrients that we should be getting with the standard diet that most people consume. So, what do you think the real, where are we missing the boat there? Basically, like, what's the problem that we're trying to fill some of those voids with a solution like this?
So in my opinion, observing health over the last 23 years, the food industry is very broken. And it was kind of over the last 23 years that I've been practicing biomedical research in different capacities. I kind of seen it going from bad to worse, maybe from good to bad to worse. Back in the 90s, it was quite okay. But what I feel is happening is we're trying to optimize the production to get the maximum amount of crops, maximum amount of yield, without really thinking about the quality of the product.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we consume food out of the supermarket, their primary concern is to avoid spoilage, to keep, a product on the shelf for as long as possible, looking its best. The apples have to be perfect without any blemishes. And in reality, this is not natural.
Yeah.
The natural thing, that all of the really beneficial things comes from plants that are stressed. So you can draw the analogy with the wine. For example, there is a compound that is very popular in longevity community right now called resveratrol, which is found in the red wine. And in a small doses, it actually supports longevity and usefulness and energy levels, including the cellular metabolic energy. And the only way you can maximize the amount of resveratrol in wine is before you harvest it, the farmers basically stop watering it, and they put some like fungal infection onto the grapes.
Yeah.
And the grapes get stressed, and in order to fight all of it, it starts creating that compound, which is called resveratrol, which is activating the longevity genes in us humans. So it's actually a good thing when the plant is stressed.
Yeah.
However, like if we talk about technology like hydroponics, this is a different kind of stress. Hydroponics is putting a lot of chemicals into a water to make the plant grow. And the argument, I think, from the growers and big agriculture is, but you don't use the soil, and but if you don't use the soil, what kind of elements, what kind of building blocks is in that hydroponic plant? Like it's lacking. And the same is with the soil. If we don't rotate crops, if, for example, we don't switch between legumes to like grains to something else, when legumes put a lot of nitrogen back into the soil, it's enriching it to get its quality back up. We just take all of those micronutrients that were there before, but there is nothing to put it back. So when we formulate our soil, we make sure that everything that is supposed to be in the highest quality, like black soils, is there. So there is like the fungal mycelia, there is compost that's organic matter being recycled back for its nutritional content. That it's basically enriched, but it's enriched naturally, not with like external nitrates and chemicals. It's from the products that came from the soil and supposed to come from the soil.
Yeah, and all of that stuff that you're talking about, we just can't get with this like ultra processed, highly processed type of diet that a lot of people eat. And I know one of the arguments that I hear sometimes is that it's too expensive to eat healthy. And I was having a conversation actually in the clinic with a client yesterday. And the thing that I like to talk to people about is, I think something being expensive or not in finances, first of all, it's all relative to the person. But I think you're often left with a choice between either making the choice to pay for your health and wellness and longevity, or being forced with the situation where you have to pay bills for your sickness and your disease later in life, or even currently in life, might not even be later. But because what we tend to find, right, is the people that do a better job taking care of themselves, living a very healthy life, generally speaking, are going to spend less money on medications and medical bills and hospital time and anything like that. And of course, there's exceptions to that when people have situations that come up. But I would expect that you would say basically the same thing.
I think you nailed it on the head, but I want to bring up one more point which you didn't mention, and that's quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
You can invest in good nutrition and have the energy, because what is metabolism? Metabolism is the rate of conversion of the food into chemical energy for our cells.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that process at the optimal rate, at the optimal level, our cells start dying, they start starving, they don't have the energy that they need to function, and we get fatigued, and we get foggy brain, and we get weak as far as muscles and joints, and we can't run anymore. All we can do is sit. Like, I think people need to think of themselves with the quality of life that they enjoy doing, and say, would I be satisfied if I did not invest in myself through great nutrition?
Yep.
And I would, suffer those ailments, and I would have to get the medications, and I would have to tolerate the side effects of those medications, which would further affect the quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
Or am I willing to pay a little more for a high quality product, which can be also protective of health and overall well-being, and I would stay in my quality years for that much longer?
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because you are absolutely right. Hit the nail on the head. That and I think most of the people listening to this show are probably the variety that would prefer quality in whatever we're talking about, whether it's a product that they buy, whether it's their life, whether it's the services that they receive in our office at Physio Room compared to many of the other physical therapy practices out there. We have this quality over quantity discussion all the time. So speaking of quality over quantity, somebody listening to this might be thinking to themselves, okay, I see advertisements all the time for green supplements from various different companies or organizations, and what's the difference between Revogreen versus some of the other greens, powders, or supplements that are out there on the market and available today?
So that's an excellent question. And when I go and I look at supplements for myself, and for me, the motto of my life is preventative healthcare all the way. If I can avoid being a patient of the medical system, I would. And so when I choose supplements, I really look at the source of the compound. First of all, how are we different? A lot of the supplements that you find on the store shelves right now are synthetic version of the compound that they're telling us to do. And there is actually a growing body of research that shows that synthetic version is a lot less absorbable and bioavailable to the body than the natural compounds that are growing. Our body were not designed to really benefit from this conformation, or this chemical formula. It's we're evolved in nature, and the evolution is such that we draw the most benefit from something that is a lot less processed and a lot less artificial than a lot of things that are in there right now. In addition, right now there is such thing as pharmaceutical grade supplements, which is a very, very high standards of making the supplement. Basically, the definition of this pharmaceutical grade supplement is it has to be 99% or more percent pure, and it has to be certain percentage of bioavailability. And so there are supplement companies that go out of their way, us included. As I said, I just had the inspection yesterday, who will not put fillers into the pills. It means that we have labs that verify that that the content of the supplement is above 99% what we say it is on the bottle. And very often, more often than not, it's for commercially available non-pharmaceutical grade supplements. It's mostly fillers, it's cellulose, it's calcium carbonate, it's all of these other things with the minuscule amount of the compound that they say is there. So if you overlay that to them being synthetic and very scarcely bioavailable, then more often than not, you don't draw any health benefit from a supplement like that. So we're different in the way that we do it minimally processed. We base it on science that, you know, the formation of ice crystals and drying is actually increasing bioavailability. We don't put any fillers. Basically, we take the whole freeze-dried microgreen powder, we put it into a pharmaceutical grade machines, and it packs those pills for us. Basically, the entire goodness goes exactly to the consumer.
Well, yeah, and I think that's compared to a lot of the other products that I see that are marketed, you know, as greens. Your guys' is one of the first, if not the only one that I've seen kind of in more of a capsule form. You know, you see a lot of those things, like you said, in powders and canisters that you use a scooper. And unfortunately, like you mentioned, a lot of what's in that container is often just those filler products and not the actual goodness that you're trying to get. But when I open up your guys's, I guess we'll call it a jar, and you twist the lid off, you just see the capsules with the greens in there. So is that why, like this conversation that we're having, is that why you guys decided to make it in that format as opposed to, you know, grinding it down into a powder or something like that?
So that's an excellent question. Actually, that's not the reason. Well, it's partially the reason why. The thing is, when you don't dilute very highly potent plants, they are not pleasant in taste. Like, for example, we use a lot of radishes. We use mustard. Mustard is a great supplement for sleep. But if you just got it as a scoop and put it in your food, it would actually burn you. It would not be pleasant through the GI tract. It will not be it would not be palatable.
Yeah.
And so it's much easier to put it into the pill form, and we use the very natural non-animal product base. I think our capsules are made from seaweeds, actually. So it's an excellent product on itself, but yeah, we want to protect the quality of experience as well as deliver the right amount of nutrients. And in reality, dosage matters too. So we are the first company that is using microgreens as a supplement instead of the full-grown version of the plant. Full-grown version has it's much more diluted when we talk about those flavonoids and nutraceuticals and things like that. Yeah. We're talking about 40 times more concentrated. So you can overdose. Well, people could technically, if they would just get a scoop and dump it inside their smoothie or something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, you already started to talk about why. One of the questions I think I remembered asking you last time was, why should somebody consider taking microgreens versus other types of vitamins? You walk into any grocery store, you see shelves full of different brands, different supplements. And I think the main point that you just made now and that you made last time is just the difference of our body's ability to absorb and have the bioavailability of something that is pure and natural compared to something that's synthetically made in a pill form, where it mostly just passes through your body without actually being used and absorbed.
Yeah, so you're right. It's a lot more absorbable, and it comes with in a different biochemical conformations that our body can use, versus it's coming from the lab in a single conformation that was convenient to make.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of times what is best for us is not always convenient, and that's okay, because you talked about stress, and when plants have a little bit of stress, that can actually be a good thing. I think I shouldn't say I know the same is true for humans, right? If you really want to see things continue to progress and unfold and improve, there has to be a little bit of stress, a little bit of good stress to push you, out of your comfort zone or whatever that is, to continue to evolve and change in that positive direction.
I mean, absolutely, and there is a lot of research being done right now that says that living in absolute comfort is actually more of the detriment than an advantage for any living organism, including humans. And we do need the physiological stress means that sometimes being cold, sometimes being hungry, like having less meals, that activates that longevity pathways, that turns on different genetic circuitry that keeps us going, that, we're lacking resources right now, we need to hunker down, or, okay, now the resources are abundant, now we're in the growth stage. So it's absolutely very important this is why people do, high intensity interval trainings. Yep. They give a little bit of that stress to start a lot of physiological processes that are very, very important for us.
Yeah, and we've had, a couple episodes on this podcast, and I know there'll be more sort of on that topic. We've had one on, exposing yourself to cold temperatures, exposing yourself to heat. One that we haven't really talked about that I kind of want to ask you about, and how that might relate to these supplements. I think we will get into this more on this show, but is this sort of topic of intermittent fasting. So do you know if you have any customers or consumers right now who regularly participate in some sort of a fasting protocol? And do you recommend that they continue to take these supplements, for example, if they're on a day where they're doing a fast, or if it's a morning where they're doing a fast? Or do you generally recommend that these be consumed, with food or something like that?
You give me a second, I will answer it. I need to get the charging cord.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, go charge it up. And one thing while you're grabbing that I will say is, I see a significant difference between the products that Revogreen makes compared to, some of the other supplements and vitamins and things out there. When Josh, one of the owners of the business, sent these to me so that I could try them, I noticed that, they're labeled very clearly. They come in a nice glass jar that's dark and blocks a lot of the light, as opposed to, something that's plastic that you see out there most of the time. And each of those bottles and boxes that you guys have has clear directions on there of like how many to take, when you would recommend taking them. But yeah, back to that question. Do you guys typically recommend that these supplements be taken with food, without food? How are we going to best be able to utilize these things?
So I would be happy to answer your question, because I do intermittent fasting. I do 24. So 20 hours fasting, 4 hours eating window.
Yep.
Our microgreen supplements do not have nutritional value.
Right.
Meaning that if you consume that while you're fasting in the morning, it will not knock you out of your fast.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually need about, I think, 60 calories, if I'm not mistaken, to really be knocked out of the fasting stage. And I think this is a protocol of another very prominent scientist, David Sinclair. He is also on intermittent fasting. He is a longevity expert, and I think he's even on 1 meal a day type of thing. But he does take dietary supplements, and another thing he does, he takes it with like 2 teaspoons of yogurt or kefir. So even that, because plant-based supplements, they are not very well dissolvable in water. And this is true no matter what they are, whether you're taking turmeric or it's maca root or it's microgreens or it's athletic greens. It doesn't matter the brand or the source. The plant-based supplements are not very well dissolvable in water. Mm-hmm. And to really maximize the absorption and the availability of it, it's recommended to take with a little bit of something fatty. That means yogurt or kefir, or a tiny bit, like a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, mm-hmm. cold pressed. And all evidence points to the fact that in those amounts, so a couple of spoons of kefir, a couple of spoons of yogurt, still do not affect the fasting regimen. And so I can attest to that. I take my microgreen supplements in the morning. Mm-hmm. Usually I do 2 immunities, 1 focus, and 2 muscle and joints. That's my personal regimen. And I chase it with like a couple of sips of kefir, and I'm good until like 2 p.m. when I have my first meal.
Got it. Well, thanks for going a little bit more detailed on that, because I think that's, one of the things that a lot of times people will take supplements, but maybe they do, maybe they don't exactly follow what the recommendations are on when you should take it, what you should take it with, so that it can have its, most maximum possible effect. So, if someone's going to be taking these, we definitely want to make sure they're getting the best out of it.
Yeah.
So if someone decides to purchase supplements from you guys at Revogreen, do you think, like, in terms of a, like a supplement or whatnot regimen, would there be any need, if they were using the supplements that you guys create at Revogreen, would there be any need to take some of the other supplements out there? I know a lot of things like vitamin D, vitamin C, fish oil, whatnot are really popular. What would you say in terms of that? Like, would this be a complete kind of regimen, or would you recommend for most people still adding in a couple of the other things that are popular out there?
That's a fantastic question. And in reality, microgreen supplements are not complete regimen. And the reason for that is, for example, vitamin D, we still call it a vitamin, but in reality, it's actually a hormone. It's not made by plants. Vitamin D is made in the animal body, in the human body, by our melanocytes and our liver cells. And it cannot come from anywhere else other than supplementation or consuming the products such as, beef or chicken livers and, exposing yourself to sun, but who has the time, right? And so when we talk about those animal-based molecule like the DHA, the omega-3s, that's really great bioavailable form coming from fish oils. When we talk about vitamin D, when we talk about some other, animal-based necessary amino acids, it still has to be either taken as additional supplements or consumed with the diet.
Yep.
When we talk about microgreens, as any green, it gives those plant flavonoids, different alkaloids, different things that can be beneficial as far as, lowering inflammation, lowering blood sugar, all of the other benefits that has been researched and attributed to plants and the necessity of having plants in our diet. But it's a balance, and we still need to have a complete diet.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people do not eat enough green vegetables. They don't eat enough leafy greens. I think the CDC published the statistics that only about 12% of Americans consume the recommended amount of vegetables, and that's including the vegetables that are not good for health. And it's even less when we talk about leafy greens. It's at around 7%. So yeah, it's bad. People don't like to eat salads, and and we're paying the price with all these different GI ailments and other things. Yeah. So the niche that we feel is you can eat a lot less, you can consume a lot less microgreens to get the equivalent benefit of eating like a bowl full of broccoli. But at the same time, it does not replace some of the other necessary nutrients that we have to get with our food.
Awesome. Thanks for explaining that, because I think we have people that are listening to this show that are interested in kind of trying to optimize things, whether we have somebody who may have a situation that they're trying to improve because things are not feeling and going the way that they want, or we have people that quite frankly might feel very good and totally normal, but they just want to continue to do all of the things that they know can be shown to scientifically like help them continue to biohack and optimize things. Myself being one of those people. So I think that's actually one of my big motivations sort of towards doing this show, is to continue to try to gather information from experts like yourself and try to get that out to more and more and more people so that we can all benefit even more from it. Beata, if there's anything that comes to mind, what are we missing? Are we missing anything that we maybe touched on last time that we haven't caught back up to this time, or anything that, maybe I didn't ask you that you think would be really valuable to expand upon as far as Revogreen or microgreens or any of these topics are considered?
It's a good question. I can't think of anything right now. But, if we talk about general wellness, last time you asked me what can be the 2 things that people can do.
You're right.
In order to,
I have that written down right here.
In order to improve their health. And I said that eating more greens, eating more balanced diet, and like having more rest, sleeping more.
Yeah.
And I remember saying that even if it's an incremental change, even if you say, okay, from now on, I'm like, I used to go to bed at 1 a.m. and now I'm going to be going to bed at 12:30. That's already going to make a profound difference in the way people would feel, because the hormones would be different. Yeah. The different metabolites would be different. Just that extra 30 minutes of sleep for us, chronically undersleep nation, would actually do a lot of good.
Absolutely. Well, and as you guys that are listening to this know, the show is called The Code, a guide to health and human performance. So as you just heard, Beata's code, or her recommendation of like 2 huge things that she would suggest to try and improve your health and human performance, is get more sleep and eat more leafy greens. And, we have, I think, 2 episodes as of the recording of this here in early January of 2023, 2 particular episodes on the topic of sleep. And, one of the best things you can do, which is kind of exactly like you just mentioned, is try to set a consistent schedule, right? the more you can get into a routine all days of the week, not just, the 5 weekdays and then this goes haywire on the weekends. But the more that you can try to set a consistent sleep and wake time, the better your quality of sleep and your body's regimen, kind of a routine that you can get into. So yeah, and I suggest the same as you. Like, don't try to make some massive change that is really hard to stick to. Start with something incremental, start with something small. When that becomes a habit that you're able to stick to, then maybe go for a little bit more and go for a little bit more, so that you're able to continue to see the benefits going forward. So one other thing that I want to give you the opportunity, Beata, to touch on is, last time we talked, you mentioned that Revogreen has I believe you said it was like a resource library or something where people can go and find a lot of articles, research, things that you guys have like on your website or something like that.
So we are building those resources. Actually, we are thinking about making a series of short videos, both about the product and how to take it and what it does, but also about general topics of health.
Yeah.
We are rebuilding the website, and we're currently building in those databases and resources into the new site.
Yep.
Right now, we do a lot of education with the functional medicine doctors, with the chiropractors, with the naturopathic practitioners. And I do write a lot of analysis and observational summary papers to get the medical professional more information. But I would think in about 3 months' time, we should have a fair enough number of articles. We do have a blog on the Revogreen website right now that we touch on a lot of those things that we've talked in this podcast about bioavailability, about pharmaceutical grade supplements, about what are the microgreens and how to take them and what can they help with. So that resource does exist. So if your listeners are more interested to find out more, they can go on revogreen.co, revogreen.com, and if you go to blogs, you'll find that resource library there.
Awesome. I'll be sure to include that in the show notes, even though it's pretty easy for you guys, revogreen.co, but we'll include that in the show notes. So you can easily just click on that and visit that blog, visit that website, and check things out. And then what I also want to encourage you is to be on the lookout for a link to Revogreen through our practice here, Physio Room, so that you can get those things, and so that you can try these supplements, put them in your body, and see if you don't notice some of the benefits as well. Beata, aside from the website, are there any other ways, whether this is social media or anything like that, that people can get a hold of you guys at Revogreen?
Absolutely. So we have both LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram page. You can just search for Revogreen.
Yep.
And you can ask your naturopathic practitioner, your chiropractor, if they have it in stock. And if they don't, we encourage them to reach out to us and talk to us and get educated about how microgreens can help reach more people and improve more lives. And we actually have a very exciting lineup for new products that will be coming out this year. We're gonna do our first commercially available microgreen chocolate, and it's gonna be for sleep.
Love it.
And so it's gonna be a perfect silky milk chocolate, sugar-free, with the sleep blend microgreens that people can eat right before bed without any detriment to their health, and it would just help them to relax and have a higher quality sleep. If your listeners would want a guilt-free dessert before going to bed.
Yeah, and not to speak for them, but I think they would. I think I would. I think a lot of people would. So that sounds awesome. So stay on the lookout for that, you guys. And I just want to, again, thank you all for tuning in to listen to this episode here on The Code. Dr. Beata, thank you for joining me. And if you guys found something valuable in this episode, I would love if you took the opportunity. So go ahead and tell us that. Go ahead, hop on whatever podcast platform you are on, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it, and drop a review there on the podcast so that we can help this get out to even more and more people. And then if there are topics that you haven't heard that you would like to learn more about, please write those things in there too, so that we can try and get some episodes out on those things that are really interesting to you guys. So again, Beata, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. And if your listeners do have additional questions, feel free to share my email address, and they can reach out to me directly with any questions.
Oh, okay.
I'm happy to be a resource.
Awesome. Thank you for the offer for that. We'll put that in the show notes too. And I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll catch you next time here on The Code. Bye-bye.